Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Any urban legends and folklore of the Appalachia region? All I know of is Mothman.
Alright boys, here comes a long-ass pasta. I'm from /K/and do/K/shit. As a background, family owns land up Appalachia. I ran into some trouble there. Here it is conveniently in 3-part segments. Episode 1. Red Bucket Root Digger. My family-owned land is being worked on, and I have done my share of bushwhacking and burning. I have the pick-related gun and am taking pictures of it because of gun pornography. I am doing my regular deer trail patrol. I keep hearing a rhythmic knocking, not like a woodpecker but metal on wood, from deep down the holler. I ponder it over my break, stop and load my gun but do not shoot because of gun safety rules. My pa arrives. Pa is driving a tractor cutting tall grass with a finish mower. It is loud and I cannot hear it anymore. Meh, better go back, tell Pa and get more water. The hollow is a Y shape, with both ends of the Y reaching a public road, but all of the Y is our fenced-off land. I follow the right branch of the Y. A power line cut runs across the branch and I push through the brush to the road, turn right and follow the road uphill. I take this picture because of the lighting and spend some time standing and listening, maybe 19 minutes from the first sound. As I get the gun, I see a dude walking up the path I just came from, through the power cut. The dude has a hippie dark earth fashion sense, a satchel, and is holding above his head a large red bucket. I stop and wonder what Pa was wearing when the sound of his tractor re-registers in my mind. I start walking back down the road to intercept him. He breaks out from the wood line over our fence and has the bright red bucket hidden pitifully behind him behind a sapling. He stands in front of me with his arms forced on his hips like he is trying to hide it. The details of the conversation are forgotten, but the gist is the following. The hippie guy bullshits a question like, "This is blank road, right?" and said he was lost without a cell and followed the holler up, which is dumb because that hollow leads to a road and going downhill is easier. I smile politely as he notices the rifle slung over my shoulder and says to the effect of "sucks to be lost. The forest is dangerous, and did you know you are trespassing on the first set of barbed wire, or the one you just crossed?" The hippie claims to never have seen the wire, which is bullshit, as episode 3 confirmed the wire was still up all around. The hippie makes haste and leaves after a curt "and your name is?" a handshake and a friendly reminder about sinkholes in this area. The hippie goes on his way. I walk down to Pa and give him the details. He tells me to check the red bucket. I go back. The hippie has abandoned the bucket and is making a phone call up the hill. Looking in the bucket reveals several leaves and a rusty white pot metal pissing pot. It was a trail marker and a favorite pissing pot. I confiscate the pissing pot and chuck it back downhill about 40 yards to around where I can get to it later. The hippie walks back down, apologizes, and says it will not happen again. I noticed a roofing hammer-sized pick and ask what he was doing. He says, "I am a root digger." The implications hit. We part ways. I go to put my pissing pot back and see the picture related on the way down. It could have been a bear or the hippie. There's no way to tell for sure, so I made sure the gun was loaded anyway. I walked back down the trail to find where he came from. He slogged up the creek bed and was probably agate hunting. Agates around here are rare, literally only found in the county. Do not steal my rocks. Episode 2, Drug Harvest Boogaloo. Me and my brother do redneck/K/shit. One day we decode to go shoot AR-15s, test some smoke grenades, and fuck around. On the way up, we find a car parked on the left branch of the previous mentioned Y. This was the beginning. Now this road goes through our property and both sides of this area we use to park. I drove through this gate and parked under a pear tree with a steep hedge concealing my car from the road. My brother and I fan out. We plan to hold at both ends of the Y branches, If either of us sees a trespasser, we shout Jericho, and only Jericho. That is the signal to call the police while the other stalls, or if the trespasser is hostile, to shoot the trespasser in the face. I hold the upper hill, the right Y branch with my full AR-15 gear, 18 rounds of ammo, 3 quarts of water, a bayonet, etc., etc. My brother has my Tokarev sitting at 12:30 in his front pocket. 17 minutes into the stakeout, I hear muffled yelling, "Jericho Anon, come down here." I think that it is go time. I come running down the hill with the bayonet affixed, loaded, and safety off. It is 6 pounds of trigger and someone will die. I see a very startled redneck in a ball cap and a loose t-shirt swiftly walking up the road. I see a very smug brother standing by the car. The redneck has his head lowered, eyes wide, shoulders low, looking all the world like a startled, scared puppy. My brother yells for me to call the tow truck. But what tow truck? We did not talk about this. I run down to my brother and the dialogue follows. My brother speaks first. My brother conversed with the redneck and asked if the car was his. The redneck denies it. My brother hollers, "Jericho Anon, come down here." I ask why he did not just use the code word. He said because it makes it look like there is more of us. As I came down, he hollered for me to call the tow to psych the redneck out, and maybe he would fess up. The redneck is gone now as we finish this conversation. Pick related was my brother's. I am in camo on the left and the redneck is in the center. We call the neighbors about the car and call Pa. No one recognizes it and we are thankful, for we realistically could have started a feud with someone we knew. Now we recognize that the redneck may have had a partner. We conclude he came from the lower Y and so reform an ambush for this. In waiting, 18 to 50 minutes go by. A Prius with 2 people comes by. Meth heads are driving. I leave cover and drop gear except for the rifle because legal shit is running through my mind. They beg us not to call a tow. We ask who owns the parked car. They say, "Oh, he will be out any minute." We ask who that is, as we just saw off some fucker. They say, "Oh, that is his cousin, he will be out any minute." We tell them to make the car go away. The meth heads try and fail to enter the car, which we already tested. The meth heads promise to try and get a key for it, and drive it off if we cancel the tow. We fake canceling the tow because it is easier than pretending a tow truck is on the way indefinitely. The meth heads leave in the Prius, apologizing. Cue another half hour of waiting. Pick I took because I thought photo evidence might end up in court. The meth girls decided to return. They repeat the same vague shit and try again to get in the car. They do not notice the broken glass sitting under the tire. They leave and we call Pa to let him know. Pa said do not provoke, stand back, and stay hidden. He tells us to sit at a certain picnic table in the center of the clearing where he was mowing in episode 1. I'm chatting with my brother when I observe a man crossing by the car. Guns out, sun's out. Time to disobey Pa a little bit. I walk over as the man slings something into his passenger seat. He looks up at me in full kit with a gun over my shoulder, and my brother with a bulging pocketed pistol. He seems a mix of anger, frustration, and oh shit, got caught. He stands by his open trunk tossing a satchel in, and I say hello. He responds curtly, "Sup?" I ask, "You know you have been trespassing?" He says, "Yeah." I ask, "What have you been doing down there?" He says, "Hiking." I see his cargo pockets are heavy and sagging, round and sagging like heavy sand. He looks back to me while closing the tailgate and walking to the driver's door. So I said, "You have got mighty heavy pockets to be hiking." "Yay," he replies. He fucks off. I finally unload my gun and we call Pa to bring him up to speed. Episode 3, Anticlimactic Deep Patrol. Against Pa's wishes, me and my brother go deep to check the fences because this is the second time in a month assholes have walked over our shit. Pa thinks they were druggies or moonshiners, and either way, will not take kindly to us poking around. So naturally, we just gear up for any possible situation. We follow the right Y branch, then follow the ridge uphill as far as we can. We hit a cliff and scale down it. Our reasoning is if we encounter anyone, we can fire from above and have an open neighbor's pasture behind us. We take pictures of some shit, unusual or out-of-place things. We encounter no people, only jump some turkey and continue uphill against a limestone cliff we cannot climb. On this we observe water weaken chunks of stone threatening to make two nice red splats in a neat new gully. We press on to the far fence. All the fence so far has been rusty, but holds high and you will feel it. We reach the far fence and find segments of it are made to hook and loop, to close fast behind someone. Deer trails run in rain trenches and are hard to mistake when the barbed wire runs over your head and the cut segments lay at your feet. We fasten mine flags to the wire and refix the hook and loop part. We check the no trespassing signs, they are all up. We follow the wire downhill across the creek bed. Following the creek back out, we did not observe anything except our previous laid markers and some downed trees from rain. Crossing those fucklers was fun. We kept slipping on wet stone and loose dirt. We got out of there 2 hours after entering. Since then, we haven't gone that deep again. That concludes my little story.
There is all kinds of shit out in those woods, so just a word of caution if you're going hiking out there. Do your research and be prepared. Do not hike the Appalachian unless you are really prepared. The woods in Pennsylvania are odd. I have hiked all over the world, but Pennsylvania is the only place I have felt weird about it. Scotland just feels old and wary, and Germany is very ancient. Pennsylvania's woods feel like time stops. It is weird. I will attach a picture of this old farm we used to explore a couple years ago, until we found a deer skull that was just all wrong. So I live on the very edge of a nuclear family development. I am literally the last house until it dies off into the woods, where there are houses but they are dilapidated and the people are weird. But there are a lot of remains around the area of old houses from that era. There is one that still stands. It is fine during the day, but at night you get the feeling you are not supposed to be there. Let me explain. The land originally belonged to local tribes until settlers moved in, and there was a lot of back and forth in the area in terms of people killing people. About a mile from my house is a mini memorial for a family that was slaughtered in their sleep by natives seeking revenge. They killed an entire family of 9, children and all. Afterwards, they found out they had killed the wrong people, and I believe it was the catalyst for the creation of the local state wardens. I will never call them by their full name, and I refer to him only as Jerry. Naming them gives them more power. From what I understand, Jerry has been there for a long time. I know those backwoods like the back of my hand. It is partial woods and partial farmland, and I consider it my home. But I will not go back there at night. Anyways, when I was younger, my parents would not leave me home alone ever, and I was not allowed to go back there at all. One time I was late coming home and they freaked out. No one goes back there. I have never seen another person back there, despite that there are houses, and a car driving back there is odd. I have seen a cat once or twice by one of the old houses, but most of the time it all smells dead and there is a lot of just dead animals. They are just dead, not like roadkill. Plus, when you are back there you will hear things. It is creepy, but it is a nice 3-mile run that loops around to get back into the neighborhood, so I would jog it a lot since no one would bother me, which is how and when I ran into Jerry. Jerry is a creepy, clever little fuck. The thing is, as long as you are smart about what you do, you are fine. I first encountered him last summer coming home from work. Fog had rolled in like some Stephen King shit, but I just wanted some chicken fries, so I got my happy ass in my car and drove to Burger King. By the time I was heading back, the fog was so thick I could hardly see. Those of you from Pennsylvania know it is not unusual. I sent a Snapchat to my girlfriend who was like, "That looks creepy as shit, maybe you should get inside." I was like, yeah, and drove home. As I was walking to input my PIN into the garage opener, I heard his voice. It sounded just like him. But then this feeling settled over me, like a cold I had never felt before, down to my soul. I did not look, I just ran. I ran into the house and began to lock everything, but it had followed onto my deck. I could hear it. The thing about Jerry is he knows every part of our property that makes a sound, just like he knows that I know. so he will walk around to try to scare me or fool me into letting him in. He will pretend to be people and knock on the door, but past a certain time I do not answer and just lock myself in my room. I have garnered that for some reason he cannot physically enter my house against my wishes. He will just knock and wander around from around 11 p.m. to 5 a.m., with the peak times being 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. He fucks with my sleep as well, which sucks because I just want to sleep. He makes me feel watched in my own dreams. The fucker rotted my deck, and we had to replace part of it last summer, which was a pain. Everything about him feels wrong. I have a canopy above my deck that he has tried to climb to knock on my window. I close all my blinds so he cannot see me and I cannot see him. He also is generally inquisitive, trying to learn about me by going through the trash and just watching me. I go to school in Philly and live in a traditional dorm for most of the year, so I'm safe at the moment. Otherwise, I would not be posting this since talking about him only gives him power. The second you do not show fear, he loses his power. He shows up whenever I am in town and I get no goddamn sleep in my own bed, which pisses me off exponentially. I am a researcher, so I have been looking up shit on how to kill them. But unless you are a medicine man, you kind of cannot, which is annoying because I just want to fucking sleep. Jerry is a punk like that. He knows messing with my sleep is the #1 way to fuck me up.
Folks, I've worked in and out of the coal mines in southern Appalachia quite a bit over the years, and as a former coal miner writing this, there's some things you need to know about working below the drip mouth of a mine. 1. It is quite normal, very normal actually, to hear things back in a mine shaft. Normally you don't hear the noises until it's dinner time when they shut off the machines and everyone sits down at the dinner hole back in the mine. But we all know, as coal miners, that there's more activity going on in the mine besides our activity, and we often choose to ignore it. 2. It is a common thing to hear things, see lights that aren't supposed to be there, hear voices that aren't supposed to be there, and even see an orb from time to time. Most of the men who work in the mine accept it and just go about their job, though I admit, it gets creepy back in the shaft when you're very far down into the mountain sometimes. I never feared it because other miners were always right there with me, and there's safety in numbers most of the time. 3. Tommyknockers. We had an unfortunate accident in one of our mines years ago, and a miner lost his life when the shaft he was working in collapsed in on him. We called in rescue and tried to get him out, but he was so far back into the shaft with his equipment, we couldn't get to him. He died back there, and it was a tragic, horrible accident. The mine company, Eastern, decided to just brick up that part of the shaft and leave him in there. And to this day he is in the shaft, though passed on, and entombed in the mine. 4. Our dinner hole was close to the entrance of that shaft, though it was bricked over, and I admit, there were times, yes, you could almost hear that man back in that shaft, hitting the wall with a chisel of some kind, or a hammer. I was far from the only one to hear that, and the grown men, family men, who I had my dinner with at 3 a.m. back in the mine, would get a little frightened at times. We moved our dinner hole after a while because it was too unsettling to eat there for most of us. 5. We would often see orbs just fly by out of nowhere down the mine shaft, and there was never a shift that I wasn't glad to see the dawn of the morning and I'd get out of the mine. It's scary enough down there, not knowing if each shift will be your last, and I was never really afraid. But there were times, I confess, it was just eerie down in the mountain, and none of us miners ever felt alone down there. 6. The mine I am referring to is now completely closed and shut down, and has been for well over a decade. But I often think of that man who is still buried back under the mountain, and I wonder if he is still Tommy knocking on the walls back there. From southern West Virginia. Couple addendums to the story for those interested, then I'll post some pasta and feel free to join in. 1. Working back in the mine is a damp, musty-smelling place, and if it wasn't for, what was, the good money involved, no one would have done it. The only light you have is from the lights set up in the mine, and from your machines you run, and the light on your black hat. It gets quiet down there sometimes, and you can hear water dripping here and there, or the hum of other machines who are working the mine on the other side of the mountain beside of yours. I never missed going back in there, and every day I'd always look one last time at the sky before going in. A person never knows if that's the last time they'll ever see the sky again. At dawn, when we would ride the buggy out, it was always a great feeling to see the sunrise coming over the mountain, because we knew we were out, and we could spend another day with our families. Ew. No one will ever know if he left a note, but it's unlikely he did. The roof came down on him and it was fast. I'd like to think he didn't suffer, and I assure you we called in mine rescue and they did everything they could do to try to save him or get to him. The problem was, each step they took to go further back into that off shaft to get to him, more roof would come down. The company told mine rescue to just brick it up and declare him gone. It's tragic, and his family once lived here, although they moved a few years ago. Even with the compensation they received from the coal company, nothing was going to bring their lived one back. The mine wasn't sued by the family. They settled out of court for an undisclosed amount, but I imagine that amount was quite large. I assure you it happened, and he's still in there. The mine is now completely closed, meaning the entrance, drip mouth, is completely bricked up, and no one can get in there. The mine is located in southern West Virginia in my town, and I drive by it every day on my way to work. I often think about that man and hope he is at rest back there.
I want to share something with everyone. My town. It's a small place in the Appalachian Mountains. It's in the heart of the coal mining bomb and in the center of the largest oil reserve in the world. It's Paintsville, Kentucky. It's an odd small town. The actual city is only about 5 blocks, which are mostly residential. The odd thing about this city, though, is its history. This guy put the town on the map. It's also home of a few famous people, which is odd considering how small it is. Ever heard of Johnny Depp? He's from only about 20 minutes away, which isn't far. He grew up around here. Then there's Chris Stapleton and Loretta Lynn. Anyway, this town was founded by the Freemasons as a place for them to live away from the cities and other people. This area is also a natural biodome. When we were in school, they toured us through the mansion. They told us that Rockefeller, of Rockefeller Plaza, was one of Mayo's best friends and spent many days there. They told us the Rothschilds also visited Mayo. I mean, the guy did literally provide the fuel that started the Industrial Revolution. All the buildings in town are covered in Masonic eyes and stars. There's a lodge on 2nd Street. They meet every Thursday and under a full moon like clockwork. Everyone who lives here is a Mason or has one in their family. There is a very small population outside of them that is all very poor and lives in one secluded ghetto, usually the grandchildren of the coal miners. I just think this town is pretty spooky. I do not know if it is just because I am from here, but it seems like we play a significant role in every major historic event. I also do not think it is a coincidence that Serpent Mound is not far from here. There are Indian burial mounds lining Paint Creek. There is a legend that the Adena Indians here were related to the Mayans, and that they hid their gold in these mountains. I'm sure they found it while mining. Anyway, Kentucky means bloodland in Native American Shawnee. The Shawnee and Cherokee come from the Hopewell and Adena Indians. I am descended from them. I have had threads about my native heritage here a long time ago, and that's spooky shit. But this is different. Another point is that the Federal Reserve at Fort Knox is not far away either. It is a very short drive. It is also not a far drive from the largest cave system in the world, Mammoth Cave. And then there is the slew of famous people. Okay, so a long time ago, this lady named Loretta Lynn gets famous as a singer and performer. Along with her comes her cousin, Crystal Gale, I believe. They go to Hollywood where they meet the likes of Dolly Parton. At this time, country music was the popular thing. It was like the hip-hop of their generation. From these people come Billy Ray, and from them, Miley. Then there is Chris Stapleton, who is the biggest country artist and just won a shit ton of awards. The local high school, which only has 200 students, has 2 students playing SEC football at 2 different schools, both on track for the NFL. And they have already had a few students go to the NFL or MLB. They all hang around these parts every year in late September or October. I have had friends that have had dinner with Jason Aldean all the time as a kid. Everyone here is also somewhat wealthy. It is just odd. This town reeks of success. You follow their plan and play their game and you win. Everyone I graduated with makes $120,000 plus a year. They put insane pressure on me because even though they are like 23 to 25, they already own multiple businesses their parents gave them. Johnny Depp was born about 20 minutes away. George Clooney was born about the same distance away. There are numerous others. It just kind of baffles me why this town has not grown and is not bigger. It is obviously successful and they have a lot of money, but they refuse to expand. They run a very corrupt hierarchy around here. If you are poor, you are poor. They do not let outsiders into the group. If you move into town, you will not find a job unless it is at a fast food restaurant. The cops do not follow the law. They do whatever they want. They perform illegal searches, do not use warrants, and pull people over and search cars for no reason. You cannot ever do anything about it except play along because the DA, judge, and lawyers, even the ones you hire, are all in on it and are Freemasons who meet every Thursday. No one that is poor and lives here can afford to go out of town for a legal defense. The FBI has also been investigating the town. Our mayor was recently arrested for corruption and a slew of other things. Essentially, the cops would pull people over, plant drugs, claim the vehicle as drug seized, take it to the junkyard, claim they junked it or scrapped it but actually sell them. They caught on to all of this after the mayor did not pay his utility bills for 10 years because they are so fucking corrupt, and into their own little world they forgot about the actual government. The dude literally thought he did not have to pay them after he got elected. There is a tunnel system that runs underneath the mansion and multiple nuclear fallout shelters, which those are not that special. The tunnels lead from the Mayo Mansion underneath the city's brick roads into the Catholic Church and 2 different houses. They try to tell us it was a part of the Underground Railroad, but we all knew that was bullshit. It was said that Mayo frequented the tunnels and that he never did walk outside to get to other places. One experience I had with this mansion, it is right in the center of town on 3rd Street, between Main and 5th. When I was 14, me and some friends planned to meet some girls on 3rd Street, but our town has a strict 12 a.m. curfew. We met them halfway. We saw a car coming from a distance and jumped behind the stone wall surrounding the mansion. 30 seconds later, we were swarmed by every cop in town with flashlights and guns. They took us home and acted like nothing happened but forbade us to be near the school after hours. It never made sense to me how fast they got there. Then there are the old legends of Mayan gold in this area. The Cherokee and Shawnee claimed they were the descendants of the Mayans. They knew and talked about their history and spoke about how they came from the south. They also brought with them their gold. Now I want you to put the map in retrospect. Given the Mayan civilization and how advanced it was, and their relationships with other tribes throughout northern Mexico, Kentucky would have only been a 2 to 3 week journey. In their terms, that is not very far to hide your treasure. That was their reasoning for coming here after the Spanish arrived. Mayo was a miner. He dug out and topped off numerous mountains, almost every mount here. He built the roads and controlled the expansion of the area with investment from Rockefeller. I believe he found the gold, but I also believe he paid a price with it or obtained something spiritual. Now let us get down to the vampires. We have had numerous people emerge from the surrounding area and go on to claim to be vampires. A few of the groups and cults have made national attention and had documentaries done on them. There is an area out in Blaine, Kentucky called Irish Creek, which is not far from here. It is known for murder and self-termination. If you live up there, chances are you will kill your family, then off yourself. The area has been investigated by numerous paranormal experts, whatever that is. The city, being the people they are, had a mystic come in. She said she would not even walk up the road. She claimed the devil himself lived in the hills of Appalachia and that he was the one doing this. She said that he was there at this moment.
Growing up poor in the Deep South meant sharing a lot with my little brother, Ollie. Most often we'd pass toys, clothes, and skin conditions between us. Up until he was 6, we even shared a bed. Neither of us was happy about that. It was my 10th birthday when that changed. I got one present that year, and it was a bed of my own. Ollie was jealous right away, and I could understand why. He had to keep that half-broken-down frame with the worn-out mattress. The one I'd gotten wasn't much better, but not being broken and worn was enough. Sleeping apart was a great feeling. It was freedom. No longer would I have to suffer the sudden and inexplicable kicks to the stomach. No longer would I wake up with Ollie's foot pressed into my neck like he'd stepped on Dracula the night before. At least that's what I'd thought. Right away, right after I got the new bed, the shriek started. At first I thought Ollie woke up in the middle of the night and screamed because he'd gotten scared. Then the sound echoed through the tiny room again, and I knew it wasn't a normal cry. The room was always pitch black after sunset. The one window we had was pressed against a long leaf pine, and even the biggest, brightest moon cast no light inside. The shriek just about drove me crazy. Every night, probably at the same exact time, these sharp yelps would knock me right out of my dreams. It wasn't my mom or dad yelling either. I knew what that sounded like, believe me. Most worrying of all was the fact I could never tell where it was coming from. It seemed completely random. One night, it had come from somewhere near the closet. The next, it'd shoot out from a corner of the ceiling. Any hope I'd had of having my own space would get dashed every time, as Ollie would silently slip into the bed with me, shaking like crazy. He'd clasp onto me and wouldn't let go until it was almost daybreak. Most times I'd take his hand and tell him everything was going to be okay, that it'd be over by morning. But I was never really sure. Over time, the shriek started changing. At first, it was only by small degrees. Eventually, it took on the primal hooting sound of a primate calling out its fierce warning. I had to clasp pillows to my ears just to keep from going deaf. Mom and Dad never believed me, or Ollie, basically because the thing, whatever it was, refused to make a peep when they were in the room. Apparently, they couldn't even hear it through the walls, even though it was damn sure loud enough. The shriek just got worse and worse until I felt like I couldn't take it anymore. Ollie and I were doing really bad in school, and we just had no energy at all. I could sleep more deeply with my head propped up and eyes open in the middle of class than in my own room at night. Then, thankfully, we moved out of the house nearly a year later. I had contemplated all sorts of things, even a child's clumsy concept of suicide, to get away from the horrific nightly noise. There was no problem at the next house. It was a nice white cookie-cutter home on a dead-end street, and I welcomed the normalcy. What's more, when we moved in, there was a bunk bed waiting for me and Ollie. No more broken bed, no more second bed I ended up having to share anyway. The only problem was deciding who'd get the top bunk. I told Ollie I deserved it. After all, I had gotten a new bed way back, and he ruined it by climbing in every night. What? He shook his head. I never did that. I had always wondered why the noise stopped the second I was sharing my bed. Now I had the answer.
I grew up somewhat south of Savannah, Georgia, in a rural community that wasn't entirely developed. Some of it was marshy, the rest was forest. Mixed conifers and deciduous trees with a bit of underbrush, but generally easy enough to explore. There were a few uncanny things about the neighborhood. You'd find abandoned campers in the woods with no obvious way for them to have been taken in there in the first place. Once I found a playground literally in the middle of woods. though likely it was built with misguided optimism that the lots around it would be bought and cleared and developed. It became a place I could go to brood without being found. I'd just turned 12, I think, and it was late summer and late in the afternoon when I went out there to take a break from my siblings and be alone for a while. I was sitting in the clubhouse part of the playground when I noticed that the usual woodsy noises of cicadas and such was quieting. I tucked in and hid in case it was the little brother or sister I was avoiding. Well, it wasn't. From between the gaps in the boards, I saw 3 strange critters wander past where I was hidden. They were bipedal and ape-like, with arms longer and legs shorter than would be appropriate for a human. The tallest one was maybe my height at the time, 5 feet give or take, and the shortest perhaps 4. When the smallest lagged behind it, dropped to all 4s and kinda galloped a few paces to keep up. They were covered in hair nearly from head to toe, except their puckered little faces and the palms of their hands. And by hair, I don't mean fur. I mean it seemed to have the texture of hair, like they were simply particularly hirsute or maybe suffering from hypertrichosis. They were also ridiculously, incongruously blonde, like golden retrievers, and I could smell them even from a distance. They smelled like bears, if you've ever hunted them. Suffice to say, my jimmies were pretty rustled and remained hiding quite a while, even though they were long gone. I had heard of Bigfoot, of course, but never on the East Coast and never so small. It wasn't until I was an adult and I heard accounts of skunk apes did it click that perhaps that is what I'd seen. A little far north for it maybe, but it's nice to have some evidence that I wasn't going nuts. The area has long since been developed in the 21 years since then. Who knows? Maybe they were fleeing development, knowing civilization was crowding them into a corner. I hope they made it. My next little anecdote is more bewildering than supernatural. I live in North Carolina now, near to Camp Lejeune. Mostly rural, but not really the middle of nowhere. A few years ago, I had a job that was mostly providing medical transport to the poor and the elderly, and on this particular morning, we had to get a very early start for appointments in the next big city over. The sun isn't up yet. 2 of my passengers have dozed back off, and the 3rd is in a wheelchair, so he can't see shit from back there. And I'm alert because I often see deer on this particular stretch of country highway. And I am being extra vigilant because fuck the headache of having an accident this particular morning. I see some eye shine in my high beams and brake as gently as I can so I don't spook my passengers, just in case it decides to dart in front of me. But instead of being a deer or a dog or a raccoon, what I saw in my headlights was a goddamned fully maned male African lion in rural North fucking Carolina. He seemed less bewildered to see me than I was him, and he sauntered across the road like he's cock of the rock and vanished into a cornfield. Did any of you see that? Of course not. It should be noted that while there is a small zoo nearby, they don't have any predators larger than several cats. It should also be noted that we're not near the mountains, so probably not a cougar. And lastly, I have a biology degree I can't get a job with, hence driving a fucking bus. So I like to think that I wouldn't be mistaken in something like this. Never heard anything about anybody else seeing it, though.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.